Hi, my name is Simon Hedley, known to my clients and partners as a strategic alchemist and an ultimate connector. I'm a chartered accountant who brings together and bridges the worlds of business philosophy, finance, marketing, optimization, ontology, and so much more. Always focused on one thing, the simple idea that can make the difference to people and projects so we can tip the scales in their favor and get them complete. Pause, Stop, Reset is all about the three little words that can make the difference. They have for me and my clients, and I hope they will for you too. During the show, you'll get to learn about my guests' real-life experiences and the insights and lessons they've learned as they've navigated the resets in their personal and business lives, which you'll be able to leverage yourself. So let's start the show. Hello, I'm Simon Hedley, and welcome to this episode of Pause, Stop, Reset. Today, I'm joined by the one and only Sarah Jenkins. She is the co-founder and CEO of Genesis Digital. She has a truly incredible story, and I know how much she's been through as a business owner and a mother, and she has so much value to give. So I'm really excited to have her join us today. And so without further ado, Sarah, welcome to Pause, Stop, Reset.
Hi, Simon. Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be so fun.
It is. I'm really looking forward to it. And let's begin at the beginning, because I think the people listening may not know who you are, not kept up with your resets. Who is Sarah and what are you focused on today?
Well, I don't blame anyone for not knowing because I've avoided social media and I haven't really been upfront about my life for a long time because I've just been very busy running a company of about 128 people and having 5 children took a lot of my time. So if you don't know who I am, that's totally okay. My feelings are not hurt. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Genesis Digital. We own 2 major products, Webinar Jam and Kartra. EverWebinar is a side project to Webinar Jam. It's actually my favorite because it records all your webinars for you and then auto replays them. It's fantastic. I live in Southern California, have a pretty amazing, happy life, have been through some things, and I'd love to help where I can. What questions you have for me, what I could give back to your audience, or what things you'd like to hear about, I'm all yours.
Awesome. And as you sort of touched on, that software company was such a pivotal one. And it's part of the story I think we're going to get into the show. And I'm really excited for this for 3 or 4 reasons, and we'll get into that as we get going. So let's sort of start with the crux of this really, which is if you look back on your life till now, what has been the biggest shifts and resets you've been through?
Oh man. Obviously, when you're a young adult and you think you're going to own the world, I think when I was 7, I was definitely going to be a fireman. And then mom told me I had to carry people. And I was like, well, not doing that. So I changed at a young age to do something else. But when I was 15, when you start to realize that life is not all about you, it's about other people too. My mom was so frustrated with me. She had 9 kids and I was probably one of her most difficult, if not the most difficult child she had. She's like, what are you even going to do with your life? I was like, well, I'm going to own my own business. She was like, really? I'm like, yeah. So I was very sure at 15 that I was going to own my own business. So I went straight to interning to get me out of my mom's house, but also give me experience in the business world. I interned and learned all about this little clothing boutique that a friend of ours owned. And she taught me from managing staff, scheduling, to CODs, to ordering fabric. It was a great experience for me getting started on business ownership.
Very interesting. And so since then, right, on the entrepreneur journey, what sort of caused you to have to reset your plans?
We had the first frustration when I was 25 with 3 little children. My first husband left, and which is very unpleasant. But most people, well, half the people have been through divorces. So they understand that it's a trying time, especially for a young mom. And we own businesses together. So I took one, he took the other, and we split. After that, I met my second husband, Andy Jenkins, who did the Video Boss, who's very recognizable. I mean, back in the day, he was one of the best internet marketers out there. I certainly had a lot of respect for him, obviously. We got together and got married and had a baby and started the Webinar Jam. And then when he actually got cancer in 2017, life shifted yet again. So we've had a couple times where my whole life was planned and going great, and I've totally got it on track. And then it's like, oh, shoot.
Yeah. And, Andy was a huge character, a huge value add to the system, right? Professional video guy and the marketing brain. And I had such a privilege to meet people like Michael, same others that knew him really well. And, he's one of those people I've never met anyone sort of growl about him. You know what I mean? We all try to be that way, especially in the business space. And what you guys built is still running today. So I really get that and respect that.
Oh, it's so fun. The hole that he is the hole that's there that he left is the personality, the Andy Jenkins, hey, video boss. Like, I just don't have that. I have a little of it, but that's certainly missing in our marketplace. Some of that fun, creative, guy.
Yeah. And like, this is part of the gist of it as an entrepreneur. As we said, you go through these challenges in life and business. And I know for me, often I find the actual stopping the hardest. Actually sort of taking a pause and stopping can be hard. I'm curious of these sort of three aspects: taking, pausing, and then going back to things, stopping and having a real break and a reset, sort of doing new things. Which do you think is hardest for you, and why do you think that is?
I really like your system, your pause, stop, reset. That's actually very helpful. If you're talking to especially single moms who are trying to own a business, a lot of the life is so hectic. Your kids are small. You have to spend time with them. You have to worry if you're wearing the right color lipstick. Like, it's very hard to do that pause and then stop, because you're going on this trajectory. You think it's going great. You talk yourself into it. And when it starts not going great, you're like, shoot, and you try to do something else, but you don't do that pause. I think that for me is the most important of the three things: the pause, stop, reset, that people don't do often enough.
Yeah, especially for a single mother or for a parent in general. It's those moments when the child has done something and you discover it and you want to react. And that moment, you just take a breath, count to 5, count to 10. don't lash out in anger or emotion, because it doesn't work. And it's so easy to step over it, right? And even though I've been around this stuff for so long, and it does work in life and business, we're all learning it. We all sort of have to take those moments. As we were talking on the recording earlier, I mumbled some words like, okay, here we go. And that moment, like, giving yourself that time to reset in is so challenging sometimes.
Don't forget to get the camera. So the minute my kids do something, I'm like panicked. They're dying. They're killing themselves. Oh my word. But then I'm like, wait a minute. That was actually really funny and really cute. And I didn't even document it.
Blackmail footage when they're 18 at high school. That's the one, right? And it's kind of fun. And so one of the things I get about, when we interacted online, was the energy you have, right? You've got this sort of, I'd say, a fully formed knowing who Sarah is today. And if you could send back some of those insights and lessons to your younger self, what do you really wish you could give her as lessons, and why?
Well, this is a great question, because I'm just going through these issues with my teenage daughters. I have a 16 and 15-year-old, and I take their phones away when they misbehave or they don't do their homework or whatever. And they feel like life is over. Like, they're in prison. They can't wait to get out. Like, I can't wait to be 18 and get out there. I'm like, what do you think you're going to do? Like, what exactly do you think freedom means to you if you have no money, no job? Like, I'm trying to help them get over that spot in their brain where they're stuck. And for me, it's like, well, when I was younger, I thought that I had to make choices right then for the rest of my life. And I just don't think that's true anymore. I had a girlfriend who was getting married, and she was like, I need to go out. I'm like, okay, great. So we went out for a drink, and I was like, how are you feeling? Are you nervous? And she's like, marriage is just so permanent. And I was like, yeah, it is, but it's not. So it's absolutely not permanent. Unfortunately, some spouses might leave you and some spouses might pass away. I've been through both. So I would marry and take vows for life, but it's unfortunately not the rest of my life all the time. And she was like, oh my word, that's so helpful. Like, it's not she almost thought it was like a prison or something. And I almost released her from that thought of, it's not forever. This time in your life, this decision is not your forever. As much as your best intentions are that it is, and you can do it forever, but that person might not.
Yeah, my dad passed when I was younger. Mum remarried, and it's so true. We take these, and I've been through a divorce myself, right? Occasionally we take that job and go, this is me forever. And then life happens, right? Nobody planned for lockdown. Nobody planned for most of the things that actually really make us move and change careers. And even the fact we're doing a Zoom today, this tech wasn't there 10, 15 years ago, right? So no, that's really interesting. And especially when you're, 15, 16 years old, the idea of 3 years at a university is like a lifetime, right? Nowadays, life's different time spans. And I'm not sure, it's really curious. I love how you care about family and business. Do you see, your children 20 years now, is things be much more fluid, do you think? Will there be people still forming lifetime marriages for 50 years, business careers in the same company for 50 years? Or do you think for what your trends are, that's going to change?
Oh, I think it's human nature to want the stability and the relationship closeness. I'm religious. I'm Christian. I think that God calls us to get married if we can, or find that right person. And then you make that vow for your life, because that's how you found the most quality in your your marriage. Obviously, you've been through divorce. I've been through divorce. It doesn't always happen. It's not always our fault. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not. And so I believe in the vow and the sacredness of marriage and coming together. And I think that's innately human and what we want. We want that connection and we want to belong and we want to be validated. So I think if you find that quality partnership, marriage or business, that's where you find the biggest success for yourself and your inner, happiness.
No, 100%. I get that. It's just that wisdom of age, right? The youth realizes if I just stuck there for longer, especially in business, finding the right business partners to build with in different ways is so important. And I think today it's so easy to get distracted by the new shiny objects. We've just seen Chat GPT come from nowhere to giant revenues. Everybody's jumping on that. Then there'll be the next thing. And sometimes that longevity, stability is so required, especially in a world that is going through sort of chaos. I know for me, what's helped me navigate often is books and movies, sometimes silly, sometimes serious, sometimes recommendations or chance coming across. Are there any books or movies that have helped you most on your post-doc resets?
Well, I love movies. My late husband made movies. He actually made horror movies, which I don't watch. He made the Blair Witch Project. And I saw that when I was 15 or 13. And it was my girlfriend's house. I wasn't allowed to watch it. I definitely watched it. And then when I met him, he said he made it. I was really mad at him. I was like, that was the worst movie ever. It was so scary. And then, obviously I got to grow.
He laughed about that. Did he apologize?
Well, what's funny is he made a movie and I was 13, but whatever. Then the books though, I love the movies. They've actually made Webinar Jam possible. And I believe that video makes more money than anything. That's why you see it on TikTok. That's why Reels. That's why Amazon products, the number one products are going to have a video because video makes more money than anything. But I don't have a specific movie I can go back to and say, this changed my life really. When Andy and I were dating, I was on set making the Exists horror film. And it was really fun to be on set and see how movies are an entire company with producers and staff and admins and payroll and the whole thing. But books, because you take from it what you want, the movie sort of sets it up for you with the music. And if you watch a horror movie with no sound, it's not scary. It sort of wrecks the whole thing. So you have to be surrounded by your senses to get the most of it. But with a book, you decide what you're going to get from it. So my favorite book, and I'll probably reference it in the book that I'm coming out with later on this year, is How to Win Friends and Influence People.
And what did you get from that book? I read it in my 20s, I think. What was the thing you from the book?
It is almost not applicable anymore the way it is just so centered towards men and women are to be home. And it's very much that, but I really enjoy reading it because you think of the best thing about yourself. I think the best thing about myself. If somebody criticizes me, I'm like, what are you talking about? Obviously, you don't see what I'm doing. I'm amazing. Like, how could you think I'm doing anything wrong or bad or need to be criticized? Like, so you automatically get defensive and you almost start defending yourself overly because you think you're doing great. And most people think they're doing great all the time. If you don't think you're doing great, you'll probably get depressed, and that's not suggested. But in the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, it says, if you go to someone to criticize them, understand that they think the best about themselves. So start there, because if you contradict that thought, you're just going to start a fight and you're arguing with them and you're not reaching them on that level. So for me, when I work with my staff, most of the time, my kids, except when they're being awful, is when I see someone doing something wrong. It's not a wrong thing. It's, hey, can we look at this together? This is the outcome we got. This is what you chose to do in the customer service ticket or the way we handled, an interpersonal issue. And so what do you think that we could do to make this a better outcome for you? What would be a better situation you could find yourself in if this situation came up again? So it's encouraging them to look through themselves and find the way that they understand that they're going to be better and they can strive and meet that challenge. It's much better than criticize and say, look what you did wrong. Someone's like, what are you talking about?
That's a really good reminder of that advice, that sort of coaching style of feedback. For my sins, I went through some banking and some army training, and there it is like, you stop it now. it's much more directive, let's put it that way. Yes, there were things thrown at my head as a kid. That's how you got trained in those environments. It was less of the, how do you feel about that? And I fully get that. And we've been building this thing lately, and the whole reminder, this sort of sandwiching feedback. Have you heard that phrase? The positive, the negative, positive. And it's so easy in those snap moments, like, what have you done? To be, to take a pause. That's really interesting. Can I try this instead? And I love that reminder. And that's definitely a book to go back and read again.
It does not work for 2-year-olds, by the way. You just have to tell them to stop it.
Have you seen the Stop It video?
Yes. Of course I have. And my friend sent it to me. She goes, did you write this? I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's one of those. I remember seeing that about 12 years ago, and that's one of the ones that I've shared so many times. It makes me laugh. One time, somebody got very upset, and that's a whole other conversation another day. But we're moving on because we're back in your time, and we're laughing a bit and having some fun. That's what it's all about, I think. And so, look, we touched on obviously Andy's cancer, other things you've been through. When you think about the event or experience that most caused you to have the sort of the pause, stop, reset, what helped you through that? Was it the faith you have or family? What helped you through those pause, stop, reset?
So faith for sure was I think probably the most helpful to understand that you're not alone, because I do believe in God or a higher power. And so you're not alone. So I was never truly alone. Like even in the corner of my room, sitting there by the bed, kids are at school, just sobbing my eyes out, can't get up, don't want to get up. Understanding I wasn't alone was probably the thing that really helped me emotionally. But then realistically, like I was, I'll give you a good example. I was sitting in my bed, the kids had gone to school, the nanny took them. I do have a nanny now that I've got 5 and I've got a successful career. And I was sitting there, I was like, man, I don't want to get up today. I'm so frustrated. Like, what am I even going to do? What's it going to matter? You know, my staff's running great. They don't need me. It was just a bad moment in my head. And I was texting my now fiance, and he's like, what are you going to do today? I said, man, I don't know. I think I'm just going to sit in bed. I don't know. When the kids get home, I'll figure it out. And he's like, well, you can't do that. I was like, why not? Like, there are so many asses to kick. I was like, what? He goes, you're the boss. Who else is going to do that? And I was like, oh, yeah, it's me. Shoot. It's like, you have to get up. So I got up.
Wow. So many asses to kick. Good motivator. No, and I hear that a lot, right? We've all had those moments if you just want to stay in bed all day and just not quit, but just like, I need a break. And having somebody to nudge you out is always a good thing. And I love that you have the faith there. I think one of the things we've, in the time of doing these shows and the conversations, there are people, we call it dark night of the soul, where there isn't anybody there and you start questioning your faith, and worse, the wrong voices telling you to do the wrong things. It can be quite hard to find a way through, especially with sort of the entrepreneur startup space. We've all been there where there's more money going out next week than there's money in the bank. And it isn't always clear how you're going to navigate those times.
That is so stressful. And we have all been there. Any entrepreneur knows when they're investing into their business, it's a question, and it's all your fault if it wins or loses. I had a moment where after my husband had passed away, Andy is not with me anymore. And same thing. It's when you're by yourself, your brain is the worst place to be. And I was sitting there thinking, man, what am I going to do with all of these people, with all my staff? I have 120 some families. Most of them are the major breadwinners, whether they're the men or the women in their relationship, or the women, the women, the men, whatever. Most of the people in my staff is their breadwinners. And so if my company fails, if I do something wrong, I'm the CEO, I'm the owner, it's my fault. Shoot. All these people are counting on income for their life, for me. Like, so I fire someone I fired a lot of people when I first started to just change out who I needed to work with. But it was really, really hard and humbling. And every time I fire someone, which is very, very, very rare now, it's very humbling because I take it very seriously.
Yeah, I really hear that. And I love that you have the empathy for people. When I got when we were interacting before the show, you really care, right? And you're real about it too. It's not sort of hippy dippy floaty. There's a realness to what it means to be human, actually getting on with work and life and being real for it and kicking ass to drive things forward. I know some people listening into the show are looking sort of to see how they can make a shift to what's possible for their lives, right? You've done incredible stuff. Your company's not a small company. You got 100 employees now. It's been running for, is it 10 years now? Sometimes time gets a bit scary. It's longer than that?
At least.
Yeah. It's one of those things, sort of time flies. So I'm just curious, like, what's your biggest suggestion that you've obviously mentored and been advising people for years? Is somebody like, I want to make a shift in my life. What's your biggest suggestion for how they can do that?
I always say this, keep learning, keep talking with others. When I have a problem, it can be a simple problem, like how I'm going to expand. Do I look for a recruiter? Do I hire friends and family? Like whatever question I'm struggling with that day. If you have a mastermind, if you have coaches, if you have friends in successful positions that you're either looking to be in or you're in together, like join a mastermind with people on your same level or above you, because that's where you'll go ask 7 people or 3 people, what do I do about this thing? And you will find so much help just by asking somebody who's already been there, that you can take all the answers that you get. And a lot of times they'll be the same answer. So that you'll have your answer and you feel comfortable and confident going with that knowledge. If you don't have the mastermind, mentor, coach, you need to be learning, listening to podcasts, reading books, and taking in everything you can from the people that are where you want to be or where you are.
I love that. Great. So relevant. I'm just curious, were you always a good communicator? And it's funny for me, I can't be shut up some days, but I wasn't naturally a public speaker, right? I had to learn that skill, 20 years doing the work and still getting bad at it and good at it on good days and bad days. I'm just curious, are you naturally good at interacting in the social side of life?
Well, being homeschooled with 9 kids in a big family church, and my dad has 8 siblings, and they all have 12 kids, 10 kids, 9 kids. So I'm very, very, very social. And even though we're homeschooled, our whole neighborhood was full of teenagers. And then we go to the Amway conventions and mom and dad would put us in front of millionaires and said, say hi, stand up, be proud, you're a Thompson, and be proud of who you are and who you represent. And so I think I've had the social interactions that most homeschoolers don't get to have. And then between my many, many, many failures as a young teen and struggling to find myself and what that might mean, and then 20s being single and starting over, my first husband left, I'm happy with my life. I'm happy with my kids. I'm happy in most things that I choose to do. And if I don't, I will learn from it and get back up.
Love it. Really, again, you hear the energy that Sarah's got. And this is what I think we all want to find, right? That's why we have the podcast, so you can listen in and get some inspiration here. And obviously, some people listening in, time is short. They may be skimming and fast forwarding or get busy lives. If they're over the water cooler tomorrow, what's the one takeaway you really want to be left with from hearing you today?
When you're younger, they say you can be anything you want to be. It's actually true. You can do it. You can be it. You take the baby steps, do the work, put the effort in. You can do whatever you decide to do. I never thought I'd be public speaking. I never thought I'd be doing podcasts. And I thought it was really cool. Other people did them. And here I am.
Well, that's great. And you've got a new book coming out, do you already have a date for it? Or is it one of those sort of projects for this year?
It's in manuscript phase. I think it'll come out. It's supposed to come out in March, but I think it's going to be closer to June because I really want to do a good job. If it's something I'm going to put my name on, I want it to be not inspiring and feel good, but also informative and helpful. So when you read it, it's like, okay, what can I do today that will change towards getting to my goals? Like you said, what's that one takeaway? I think most of the chapters in the book need to be driven towards something that they can take home so it's useful for them. Joe Polish just redid the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's called What's in It for Them. And he just sent me to his book publisher, and I really liked his. And that's what I'm doing with mine. But alpha female leadership is what we're calling it. I think it's going to be the title. It's the working title. It's about how women are taught to push each other down or, put someone down so they get themselves up. I don't even understand that. People don't push me down, or if they do, I don't see it. Maybe I don't realize it. My job is to lift everybody up around me. I already have success. I've already found myself and my inner happiness. I've got comfortableness in my religion and the way that I'm raising my kids. I feel good about it. So I don't need anyone's outside perspectives except when it's helpful to me. So I think that's what I want other, especially women entrepreneurs who are just starting, if they're single with kids or stressed, whatever, I want them to know they can do it and that they don't need to listen to other negativity. They just need to lift up everyone else around them and they themselves will be lifted up.
Love it. And it's such a valuable thing, right? And I've been very fortunate at have a strong mother, strong cousins, one's in the US Marine Corps. And it's incredible when you have the interesting variety of female experiences. And it isn't just male, female, but there is definitely this different energy that's going on. And more of what you're talking about is needed, I think, to crack those stories once and for all in a positive way, while also not allowing people to get overly hype marketed. Does that make sense? Because unfortunately, there's a problem. There's marketers, which we love marketers.
Marketing is great. It's so powerful. You can persuade people that they're going to need only if they need it, though. It has to be the right kind of marketing. And it's all about being real. If you're doing, back in the day, Dean Jackson did a podcast, I think maybe with Joe, called The Cheese and Whiskers. You want to show someone the cheese, but you can't show them that you're the cat with the whiskers, getting their money, because they'll feel like you're going to take their money. You're taking something from them. You're capturing them. What you really want to do is offer them the cheese and then show them where the cheese store is. It was really funny. That makes perfect sense in marketing.
No, it does. And also having to actually really deliver value. 20 years in this industry of personal development and human potential, so much of the old stuff has been forgotten and being re-engineered. And at the same time, paradoxically, there's more people with depression, with stress than ever before. And that's off with that whole system, which hopefully we're going to help crack in the next couple of years and get us back on track to community and collaboration, which I think is really important.
Oh, I agree.
We're getting to the end of the show, sadly. And couple of last quick questions for you. You mentioned Joe and Dean, incredible people. They've made huge dents. Don't know them. We'll get some links in the portal for you. But I'm just curious, who do you think would be an amazing guest? You'd love to listen to their answers to these questions, if anybody that comes to mind.
Honestly, Roland Fraser is not just a good friend of mine, but he's an incredibly smart businessman. When I go to lunch with him and his beautiful wife, Dawn, I let him talk as much as possible. I ask questions or, chime in with jokes where I can. He's way funnier than I am and way faster, but I listen as much as possible because a lot of things out of his mouth are going to be, I call it liquid gold. And he doesn't like that. He's like, no, it's not. But it is though. Because for someone like me, who's trying to be sort of more where he is financially and in the business space, I want to hear what he has to say.
Yeah, him and Ryan and some others have done the kind of thing you didn't expect them to do. Does that make sense? It's like, wait a minute, I was there 10 years ago. What happened?
True. Oh, Richard Linder, their president of digital marketer, is actually the one that helped me the most when I first started at War Room, the mastermind that just ended. He is the one that did the operations. So when I was starting to build my company, build those employees and grow, I needed a lot of what Richard said about organization, management, reviews. Those were helpful for me. So those might help people in your audience as well.
Well, maybe you can nudge Roland and see if we can get him on the show. He's one of those people. I'm in the UK here, right? And we need to get you guys over here more, okay, guys and girls, to the UK because we do come out to the States, but it's harder sometimes to the UK, the people that really need to get these conversations to connect with the right mentors, the right people, because they're usually busy in the States, which is also part of the fun. So not a complaint, just a fascinating conversation there. Look, so we're getting to the end of the show. I'm sure people want to learn more about you, Sarah, and what you do. What's the best way for them to connect with you?
I haven't gotten my PR pages up yet. 'Cause again, the social media is I'm just been busy for it, but I'm getting into it. I have an Instagram. I have Karcher.com is where you can see my products, but I don't have a good interacting place. LinkedIn is a good space. Sarah Jenkins on LinkedIn. It's got a lot of my bio stuff, and we're going to be adding more to it in the next few weeks.
Okay, and I'm sure knowing you, we can come up with a good domain which will point at your links in the future. That'll work on it. But look, it's been really fun. I'm just curious, is there any question you wish I'd asked, anything you want to share before we wrap up the show today?
Is there anything that I missed that you think that would have helped your audience?
I'm just really curious where you get your fire from. I have a friend who's a Texan lady, and she has a similar quality. It's like, don't mess with her. She's real. She'll kick ass and she's awesome. And many of us in the UK have learned to be polite. Does that make sense? We've learned, not that you're not polite, but we've learned to be sort of good middle class, good worker staff, as opposed to sort of the founder, leader, create the business thing. And I'm just curious for anything around that sort of, the insights on the business side that's helped you step into being the CEO in the years.
Oh no, you told me that this is going to be a PG thing, and I was like, uh-oh, why do you even want me on this thing? That's concerning. Well, when I've been through what I've been through. So when you've lost not everything, but like my husband dying of cancer, it changed my entire perspective. And I was always pretty alpha and female and go-getter before, but really it was sort of to support Andy. And then when he wasn't here anymore, having to sort of fill that void for my customers, for my staff, and for my family was very hard, but it's something you don't have a choice. So when I got asked, how did you get through it when your husband died? I watched him die for 2 years of cancer in his hospital room for long nights, all night, holding his hand. It was like, how did you get through it? I was like, well, you don't have a choice. Some of those times it's not motivating, it's not happy, but it's get up. You don't have a choice. Who's going to support your kids? Who's going to support his parents who are going to need help? Who's going to support, your staff? They cannot have a lack of leadership. So you have to get up.
I love it. And I think, again, this is one of those conversations that will land, and the ripples of it sometimes aren't always obvious. I'm guessing you come across Lee Rick. Do you know Lee quite well? Or a little bit?
Maybe.
Got to get you and Lee in the same room. Got a similar strength, right? And I think we used to talk about, when somebody comes into hospital or triage, there's like, they're dying and need a hand up now. They're okay. They're already going and they're kicking ass and taking names, right? I think there's definitely a space of having the energy to sort of go crack on and make things happen. And it may just be, you've been around all these smart marketers. If somebody's literally going, look, what do I do today to go make money this week, this month, right? They've got the rent. We have a charity we set up. And sadly, the number of people that have like we need to get money in this week. I've got no idea. I'm starting from zero. Where would you send them? Does that make sense? Like, where's obviously, we know little marketer, if you could point to like digital marketer yourself or digital, where would you send somebody who's like looking to start with, how can I start getting income this week, this month?
Well, it would depend. If they're starting to get income this week, this month, do they have a list? Do they have an audience? Do they have a product?
They're starting with nothing, absolutely nothing.
Honestly, like a good place to go is Amazon. If you're looking to just make some money, you have no idea what to do. Amazon, you can put together a product. You can learn how the Amazon SEO works pretty well, and you can start making money really fast. But if you have no idea, I guess the first thing, you get your yellow pad out, your pen, old school, and say, what do I want to provide? We're doing a paid to create podcast where everyone is paid to create something. If you go to a job and you're a lawyer, you are paid to create legal wins, contracts, documents. If you are a doctor, you are paid to create, health, medicine, treatment, service. So entrepreneurs are paid to create something. What are you going to be paid to create? What can you create that is going to be a benefit? It's like you have the serve hamburgers to a starving audience. So what we do with Webinar Jam is video makes more money than anything. And there was no acceptable webinar platform for marketers. There was just GoToMeeting, which was very expensive and worked really well, but it didn't have chat feature, it didn't have links, it didn't have surveys. So we made it up. We invented it with Webinar Jam. And it was one of the first webinar platforms back in the day, and it's still in the top 10 in the world, as far as I know, and I keep checking. But you have to figure out what you're going to be paid to create. And then once you get that, you get off and running.
I love it. And a lot of clarity there, right? So you've got the old things are going back to how to win friends and influence people. And this thing about what are you going to create because you get paid to create. That's a lot of clarity. And that's also what we need in a chaotic time. So Sarah, for me, it's been an absolute pleasure to get to meet you a bit more today on the show. And I'm sure people listening in will be curious more about your journey and your book when it comes out. And look, really thank you for being with us today on Pause Reset. Andy made a huge dent to our lives directly and indirectly over the years. And it's great to have you on that journey, continuing what this started, and obviously with the kids and the other ripples out there. Everything happens for a reason, they say, but sometimes it isn't easy to know up front what's going to be. And it's hard sometimes to see that at the time. So thank you for with us today for Pause Reset. And really the final word to you, Sarah. Anything you want to leave us with as we wrap up the show?
Man, I'm really grateful for your time. It's been a really fun conversation. I hope anyone listening got something positive to take away. And that's the best I can do today.
Awesome. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now. Once again, I'm Simon Hedley. Thank you for listening to this episode of Pause, Stop, Reset, which is brought to you by the team at simonx.com and published by thesimpleidea.com. So you get maximum value and to access all the bonuses and gifts, make sure to head to pause.reset.com, register and explore the portal. And if you're looking for great people, check out onesmartnetwork.com. If you've enjoyed the show, do give us a positive review, subscribe, and share this episode with friends. I can't wait to share our next episode with you. Till then, remember you can always choose to pause, stop, reset.